I'm on Facebook. I'm here. I got my coffee. It's 9 o'clock in the morning by me, so that's why it's kind of like, okay, it's not 11, you know. Okay. Okay, so here we are. We're going to start. We are on what the sheets that I handed out to you, because we're deviating just a little bit because I couldn't get copies of the still Parshat Bereshit that we're still in. So we're skipping ahead to Parshat Toldot, which was the Parsha that was read in last week's Parsha. And we got some great pieces here, one really dynamic things as we're going to explore, which is on page 43 if you have it in the yellow books here, okay? So we know about Yaakov and Esav, and there's a lot that goes into when we see in last week's Parsha about Yaakov and Esav, that we know that Esav came out first, and of course holding his heel was Yaakov. That's why his name was Eikav, okay? A lot of dynamics go into the beginnings of Esau and Jacob. As we know, they both were born, they were raised together, and of course at their bar mitzvah day, they kind of split ways, okay? So while they were born, so the verses tell us about the character of each one. That it says about Esav, that Esav was a man of the field, right? He was at Said Bafiv, actually. They say that he was able to go ahead and fool his father, you know, into that his father would think he was a very devout, religious person, but really in the truth he wasn't. And of course, Yaakov now. Who is Yaakov? So the verse says, Yaakov ish tam yoshev ohalim. Yaakov was a simple man. Ish tam. That's how they translate tam. Tam is a very great word. We're actually commanded in the Torah, tamim tiyeh im Hashem elokecha. You have to be like whole. That's what ish tam literally means. A whole man. Okay? Yaakov was a simple man, a dweller in tents. Okay? So if you look at the verse literally, okay, it has some questions, really one big question. If you look at the verse, it says, okay, Yaakov, we know about Esav, a man of the field, hunter, right? And it says Yaakov was a simple man dwelling in tents. Now, what if you look about that, you could skip over the whole idea of tents. But we don't like to do that. We like to get exact in saying, why is it specifically plural tents? Why isn't it, he was a simple man, a dweller in the tent, which means he would learn Torah all day. Okay, dweller in the tent, meaning the house of study. So that's where he was. So the Baal Shem Tov is going to now go into a great explanation of this, which has to do with all of us in the most unbelievable practical way. Okay, I'm just looking for it right now. Actually, because he quotes from an earlier Parsha. I just need to get in Hebrew. Here we go. So from the Baal Shem Tov, he says this verse here, that you read the next verse. The steps of man are arranged by God. Mitzadei gever konanu. Right? No, mehashem mitzadei gever. That's the Hebrew. This is from a verse in Psalms, chapter 37. From Hashem, I'm going to translate it literally. From Hashem are the steps of man arranged. Okay? And then the rest of the verse, which is puzzling. Who delights in his way, but darko yachafetz. And his way he will desire. That's how it would literally translate. And his way he will desire. So if you look at that, and then the next part of the verse is ki polo lo yutal, right? If he would ki Hashem somech yadav. If he falls, it's never all the way to the end. It's never totally. Lo yutal, it's never totally, because Hashem is going to support his hand. And all he says here in the translation that you have is, though he falls, he shall not be cast down. Okay? If you look at this verse in Tehillim, there's something just a little puzzling, and that we're always trained to do when we read Torah. We ask questions, always, feel free. And The idea here is, why extra words? Like I asked you by Yaakov Avinu, he's a simple man dwelling in tents. He's dwelling in multiple tents. He's got a lot of tents. What tents is he in, right? Sometimes we're in tents, but not like that kind of, angry Indian, which would be in tents, okay? But in tents, why plural? It should be, Yaakov was a simple man who dwelled in the tent. And then the second verse he brings down, which was, the steps of man are arranged by God. Period. You could end it with that. What do you have to have these added words, who delights in his way, or who wants in his way, who desires in his way? Okay? So here we go, just to get those two questions that always would lead us into this point here. So listen to this. A person must do everything possible to perfect himself. The language that they bring down, Sha'adam tzarich lasos hakol kadei sheyesh shalem. A person has to do everything in order that he should reach completion, peace, okay? Perfect himself, or shalem, peace, okay? Peace is a great word, okay? But it means completion. He must examine his personality traits and his opinions. It's an interesting translation that they bring. The Hebrew says deot. Deot, which means his ideas. He has to examine his personality traits, his midot, his character traits, and his ideas, meaning the ideas that he feeds his mind, to see if he is flawed in any way. Okay, right here is an obvious opening that a person should always be journaling or making a spiritual accounting every day about how his life is going, how his direction is going, what does he need improving on. We always need improvement, and we always have to be searching for ourselves where that improvement is needed. And it comes up here and it comes up there, and sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's buried, but Hashem always shows us where improvement is always needed. And the place is two places, as we know, character traits. That's why the Baal Shem Tov does instruct everybody to learn Musar every day, even a little bit or a lot, because you have to develop your character traits. That is one reason why, actually, the whole book of Bereshis, the whole book of Genesis, is written before the other books. Why is the book of Genesis written before all the other books? In other words, if it's the book of mitzvot, if it's the book of commandments, the book of directives, start with the directives. Give me the list. What do I got to do? Why do I have to go through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? You could put in a nice history lesson at the end. But the truth is, our sages have told us to teach us derech eretz, that means like manners, is before Torah, which means derech eretz, manners, which is character traits, before Torah, okay? So it's very important, as he says, okay? And the deeper thing here is deot, which is usually not so easy for us to fish out. What ideas are we feeding our minds? Because whatever ideas, like I say, whatever ideas that we feed our minds, they are going to come out like a seed planted in the ground. They are going to sprout something, somewhere, in some way. So it's very important for us to also be aware of the thoughts that go through our mind, because they form our reality, okay? So if you have thoughts, a person should journal or take self-introspection, what we call a cheshbon hanefesh, accounting, a spiritual accounting, because he has to work, and we all have to work constantly on perfecting ourselves. Thank God, God gave us all a nice, wonderful pekala. You know what a pekala is? Pekala is usually, if the kids go to synagogue, like especially on like Simchas Torah, they have little goodie bags that they give out to the kids with little drink, a little sweets, a lot of sugar, right? They give pekalas to all the kids, right? God gave each of us a little pekala. That means a package of character traits that you have to work on, okay? In order for us to work on ourselves, to perfect ourselves, Baruch Hashem, there's always plenty of work to do for many of us, okay? Beware of the person who says, I don't need to work on that, right? Watch out. Because it says in this verse, seek peace and pursue it. Meaning, bakesh shalom, v'radfehu. 2 words here about peace. Seek peace and pursue it. Listen, if I'm seeking peace, doesn't that mean I'm pursuing it? If I'm pursuing peace, doesn't that automatically mean I'm seeking it? Once again, double language, too much. So he's going to explain it. So that is, look into yourself to see if you have flaws. And if you can't find flaws in yourself, so you could point out the flaws in other people, and they're your flaws, okay? Just to get that, that's like chapter 4 of my book, okay? The reality, the world that we live in is a cosmic mirror that always reflects back to us our own flaws. So in any case, a person should look into himself to see if you have any flaws and seek to perfect yourself in that area, okay? So here he brings in the note, the root of the Hebrew word for peace is shalom, is the same as that of the word of perfection of shlemut. I've got another great idea, translation for the word shalom. It also means balance. A lot of times people have to balance their character traits, okay? Not too much of this and not too much of that. A person can't be too cheap, but you can't be a spendthrift. Let's say we're always looking for the middle road. However, this only applies to a person who can perfect himself. In other words, a person, he's on the path, he's very driven, he's very motivated. You know, he can see himself, he knows how to work on himself, he has tools. If he cannot, he should pursue it. And what does that mean? Pursue it. Because don't forget, there was a double language in the verse. Seek peace and pursue it. Wait a minute, if I'm seeking peace, I'm already pursuing. No. Seek peace. And if you can't get there, so then what? Pursue it, meaning perhaps he will find a wise man who can help him fix himself. Seek out a wise man that you can talk to, that you could share with, and he can help you to work on perfecting yourself, okay? There's not so many these days, so don't get your hopes too high, okay? In any case, a person should be constantly working on perfecting himself. And now here we go. At times, a person can perfect himself where he lives, in his town, without needing to travel afar. For parts of himself have not fallen there. That's the best case scenario. And look here at the note 45. This is a very dynamic note in terms of understanding Kabbalistic wisdom. According to the writings of the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, when God created the world, due to a flaw in creation that he made, sparks of holiness were dispersed throughout the world. That's what we call, and those who have learned before, what's called Shvirat HaKelim, the shattering of the vessels, or also called the death of the primordial kings. I think that's in next week's Parsha. I'm not sure. This week's? I didn't read the finish this week's. In any case, this cataclysmic event that occurred primordial, before we were around, before Adam was around, was this making of these 7 vessels, and God flooded them with light, and then because of the light was too great for these vessels, they all shattered and fell into what would be the lower realms, the world of Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. That means the world of creation, formation, and our world, making, into the lower realms. And that would make the klipot, that would make the shells or the husks, okay? That were these husks encapsulated, these holy sparks that were shattered all over the world. It was the job of Adam, I'm going on in the note there, it was the job of Adam to reunite these sparks with their source, okay? So in other words, it was going to be an automatic event that was in process, actually. When those 7 vessels were shattered, each, which is really represented by each of the days of creation, day 1, God fixed vessel number 1. Day 2, God fixed vessel number 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and 6. And 6, which was everything was heading towards that unbelievable completion. But the very important ingredient in this stew of creation is this thing called free will. And you can't get around it. It is so important, free will. And so here comes Adam on the scene, and he's got free will, and therefore there's that volatile state of we don't know which way creation is going to go, so to speak. It could go down, it could go up. We don't know what Adam's choice is going to be. But if he didn't sin, all of those holy sparks would have been gathered to make this unbelievable vessel of receiving infinite light. However, going on in the note, when Adam sinned, he caused even more sparks to be scattered, and they were his own sparks. So in other words, there's like 2 shattering or scattering of sparks events that occurred. 2 shattering of spark events that occurred. One was the original one, primordial energy fields scattered. And then there was number 2, when Adam sinned, his own soul became shattered and scattered, and all of the elements fragmented into the entire world. Going on, and the job of collecting them fell to all humanity. Once Adam did what he did in the Garden of Eden, and the sparks of his soul flew all around creation, then it became incumbent upon mankind, his later generations, to gather the holy sparks. You know, people didn't know this until the Arizal came. And people in Europe were very, very depressed and very sad, going, how can it be that we've been in exile for over 1,000 years? When the first exile in Babylon was 70 years, and here we are in Europe in Europe and the other countries scattered for over 1,000. Why hasn't God brought us back? And everybody started to get depressed. And then came the 16th century Kabbalist, and he says, the situation is this. There are sparks that are scattered all over the world, and we have to go and gather them. When the sparks have finished to be gathered, we go home, okay? So the idea here is the job. Now, mankind in general had the opportunity after Adam, but we see there was 3 generations that blew it. There was the generation of the flood, the generation of dispersal, and Sodom. Those places where God was just like, we're going to have to just bring this out a whole new. So therefore, Avraham Avinu was now given the sole task of gathering those sparks. Okay? Or like what he says here, and ultimately to the Jewish people. So that's when it moved over to the Jewish people. God gave space for mankind to gather the holy sparks, but they blew it. Therefore, Abraham, you're my man. You're going to go ahead and do that. Now go out and gather those sparks, okay? So, eventually it became the Jewish people. As a matter of fact, just to give you a little rundown, the Jewish people, when they went to Egypt and came back, that was considered to be, listen to this, bringing back the head of Adam. In other words, they say the soul in a form of a man, head, shoulders, knees and toes, right? Arms, body, torso, legs, all of those forms of a man, of a figure of a person, shattered to the world, and the head was considered to be in Egypt. Okay? So when the Jewish people went to Egypt and they lived there and they had a lot of kids and they were enslaved, they were naturally gathering all the sparks in Egypt. So when they gathered all of the sparks in Egypt and left Egypt, that's why Egypt never became a superpower again, because they had no sparks. Done. And the same thing with Baal, and the same thing with the Persian Persians and the Medes, they have a schus, why they're still around, a different thing. And Greeks, there's no more Greeks around, right? And the Romans really just took on the Greek in terms of Greek theology and things like that. But in any case, we're there to gather the sparks, okay? So this explains the reason for the many exiles the Jewish people have suffered. Their purpose was to regain the lost sparks of holiness. So in other words, in a certain sense that we're going to explore today is something quite unique, as there's an ability for a person to gather the sparks where he is. He doesn't need to travel. And then there's the dude who needs to travel, okay, to go ahead and get the sparks, okay? So the Baal Shem Tov implies here that this process occurs on the individual level as well as the cosmic level. That's right. Boom. Each and every one of us needs to find a level that our own completion. That completion is done when we gather all the holy sparks that are appropriate for our own individual soul. It's weird, it's dynamic, it's cosmic, okay? So that means there's elements of your soul that are fragmented and shattered into sparks in different parts of who knows where, okay? And you, in order to reach completion, have to finish gathering the sparks of your own individual soul. As we used to say in California, you better get it together, man. You got to get yourself together, right? So it's part of us getting ourselves together and making us to be whole. So that is, each soul, on descending to this world, also experiences a dispersal of essential sparks, which must be regained in the course of one's life and integrated into the service of God. Whoa, okay? So that means, like, in an amazing way, because we all have different talents. We all have different abilities. We all have habits. We all fall to certain things, activities. And it's all about finding balance with whatever the flaws might be, whatever the messed up ideas that we live our lives out of, the messed up perceptions that we see the world. All of that is part of us gathering the sparks into bringing us into our own individual completeness, okay? And it has to do with the sparks. Now, the most easy example is sparks in food, right? Because when we eat food, we ingest the holy sparks that are in the food, or the water, or the liquid, or whatever it is that we're drinking. Food and drink are the classic examples of elevating the sparks in the food. As a matter of fact, just to throw this at you, the Ben Ish Chai has in his book of laws, writes that on Shabbos, when you're going to say the grace after meals, that's the highest time to elevate all the sparks of the food that you ate. And he actually says to leave the chicken bones on the table, which the women can't stand it. Like my wife, no way, right? She insists on clearing the table after everyone's done. The Ben Ish Chai says, no, you keep it all in a big, huge plate, and if it looks ugly, so then you can cover it, but you have to keep it on the table when you're saying the grace after meals. Now, don't do this at home, because if there's going to be friction in the house, you better just let the wife clean up, and it's okay. You can elevate the funky chicken bones in the kitchen, okay? So, but the idea here is he says you should always leave bread on the table, by the way. There should always be some slices or a loaf of bread on the table. But you should leave all that stuff, all the klipas, the shells of the orange peels, the people ate the tangerines, or the nuts, the pistachio nut shells. You leave it on the table, right? And then you bless, and when you bless, you elevate all of the holy sparks that are all of the food that you ate, that you ingested, and also all the stuff that's on the table, all the sparks there. So it's almost like if you could take a spiritual lens and look at yourself, right? You'd see this like vacuum, a spiritual vacuum suck that, like I said, model, what was that, Terminator, right? I used to know the phrase, man. Was it a model T1000 endoplasm prototype liquid metal? I think that was how Schwarzenegger described the dude, where his piece would like melt and then it would go into his shoe or something like that, right? It would melt back into him, right? So it's almost like wild. These sparks, wherever they are, would melt into us when we do the right thing with them, okay? So the idea here is not just a global completion that we're involved with in gathering the sparks, and that's why the Arizal explained why exile has been so long, because there's more sparks, and when the sparks are gathered, I heard that Rabbi Busco told me, I still have to see it inside, something actually quite frightening, but you have to be aware of it, okay? That he said, when the Jewish people are in a place and they have gathered all of the holy sparks, and it's time to go, but hey, they're comfortable. I got a swimming pool, I got a tennis court, I go to Sunday brunch, what's the problem, right? So then Hashem will make anti-Semitism to rise in that area, in that country, in order to kick the Jewish people out, because it is time to move on. A wild idea, I know. But you have to understand that when there's a rise in anti-Semitism in a certain country, or maybe a certain state, or maybe I don't know where, it's in a certain sense, in the spiritual sense, that means that the Jewish people have sucked up all of the sparks of that place, and it is time to move on, okay? We're getting very close, okay? But however, I think that there's a lot of sparks in Texas that still remain, okay? As a matter of fact, the Chaim Voloshin did say that is the last place of the Jewish exile, okay? He didn't say America. Before Mashiach comes, America would be the last place. Rabbi Yaakov told me, Texas. Somebody said that they were having... Chaim Voloshin lived 150 years ago, 175 years ago. How did he know about, Texas, the special, unique character of Texas, okay? So here, let's go back now in the text, okay? So we were all on the footnote 45, but we're just going to go back here to page 43, the bottom paragraph. At times, a person can perfect himself where he lives, in his town, without needing to travel afar, because parts of himself have not gone to those places. At other times, though parts of his life force have fallen to other places where he must travel to redeem them, he can extract them all with the greatness of his Torah, because Torah study is equal to everything. Okay, because that's what it says in the verse. Thus, the Torah of God is perfect. Torah Hashem Tamima, tam, whole. In other words, the Torah of Hashem brings whole. It restores the soul, meaning you can learn Torah where you are, and you will have the automatic. You could be in Israel. That's a lot of rabbis. They didn't want to travel. They never want to leave. They were going to stay where they are. They're going to study Torah in the right way, with the right reasons. And they were going to suck whatever sparks that were in wherever it was in the world, where they are. Okay? Long distance, like spark suck. Okay? Just call it that. Okay? They can do it with the power of the Torah that they learn. Okay? That is, by means of the Torah, a person learns he can restore the lost fragments of his soul. Because Torah Hashem Tamima, because it also says, one who studies Torah selflessly merits many things. Okay, that brings down from Pirkei Avos, because he's going to merit the completion of himself. Okay, so that is, he merits to extract the life force from all places, because all these places themselves were created from the Torah. Okay, meaning what? That when you're in the Torah, like I always tell, the Torah is the blueprint of creation. He says that in the next note. The Torah is the blueprint of creation. God looked into the Torah and made the world. But we don't understand that blueprint like most people understand it. It's not a blueprint. Once the world is made, you wrap it up, your blueprints, and shove them away. No, we say it's the projection, okay? Because there's like the projector screen. There's the projector, which has the light. There's the film in front of the light. And then there's what's on the screen. So the world, the universe, is all the screen. The light, of course, is the light of God, and the film is the Torah. That is that is what is being projected. That's why the sages, the rabbis, are always want to look for every single thing in creation. Where is the root of that in Torah? Where is the root of that in Torah? What does the Torah say about that? Because when they do that, they hook up to its root in the film. And so when a person studies Torah, they're in the film. So when they're in the film, they can know that even if it's a place, and it's kind of weird because I was thinking last night, you have sparks in place, but somehow I haven't seen the text that deals with sparks in time, because there's space-time, right? Space-time and consciousness, the world is divided into three. So right now we're just dealing with sparks in space, but really we know, according to the Torah, there is no space. There is no time in the spiritual realm. So when a person goes up to the root of the Torah, which is beyond space and time, so obviously he can suck up the portions of his soul that are lost, that could be in, that's right, Cucamonga or El Segundo, okay? Wherever it is, okay? So you can suck up the sparks by being totally engaged in the Torah selflessly. You have to learn Torah Lishma. We spoke about that. And therefore you will merit to extract the life force from all of those places to bring to your own completion. Okay, look at the note 47. The Midrash states that God looked into the Torah and created the world, like I said, and that he used the Torah as a blueprint of reality. Since all reality is based upon Torah, a person who learns Torah can extract the sparks of soul that are scattered in all places in the world. Okay? Okay, so Yaakov Avinu, I think he says it here, okay? When Yaakov Avinu was an Ish Tam Yoshev Ohalim, a whole man who learned in tents, right? That's what he's going to say now. Read on. However, it is rare to find a person who can do this. Wow, a lot of rabbis I think would have enjoyed to read this because I think they're still sitting somewhere trying to. Don't bother me now. I'm sucking the spark. Right? So excuse me. It's not very hard. I don't know if you're on the level. Quiet, boy. This is the quality of Jacob. Okay? It's very rare to find a person who can do this, who can suck the sparks long distance. This is the quality of Jacob, who could extract the life force scattered in all places by means of his Torah study. Thus, he was a simple man in Ish Tam, Yoshev Ohalim, dwelt in tents. Don't forget that's plural. Okay? That's what it says in the note here. The verse uses the plural. Rashi explains that this means the study halls of the prophets of Shem and Aver. Okay, that's the literal understanding. Because don't forget, our question originally was, a guy goes to the house of study, not houses of study. Okay? He goes to the house of study, and that's where he sets up his place where he studies every day. Why is there multiple tents? So, simply put, Shem and Aver, who are descendants of Noach, they had study houses. They did learn Torah. That's where Rivka actually went at the beginning of the Parsha, because don't forget, she's got two. She didn't know. She thought she had one baby in her womb. And every time she passed by a place of idolatry, so one baby started just going crazy. And then when she went by a house, a study hall, right? So she thought it was one baby. She's like, "What? I got a schizo inside of me because, when I'm walking by a house of idol worship, he's going nuts, and when I'm going by a house of worship, he's a holiness, he's going nuts. So what's going on?" Until she went and inquired in the Beit Midrash of Shem, and Shem says, "Well, you have two nations in your womb, right?" And of course, he gave the prophecy that the younger will serve the older will serve the younger. And a lot of things come out from that dynamic experience. And this is what we're going to see, something really amazing here. The point here being said, simply understood as man, that is a Yaakov Avinu dwelt in tents, which means, okay, Shem and Aver, which I didn't know they had separate study houses, because Aver was a son of Shem, father and son, partnership, okay. Not a law firm, right? Shem and Aver, law, okay. So in any case, the Baal Shem Tov has a different idea on this, of Yaakov Avinu dwelling in tents, okay? So it says here, this was the quality of Jacob, who could extract the life force scattered in all places by means of his Torah study. Thus he was a simple man who dwelt in tents. Though he studied Torah in his one tent, where he lived, it was as if he dwelt in many places and many tents. So that was his understanding of dwelling in tents, which means no matter where that tent was, on the other side of the world, Yaakov Avinu, with the power of his Torah, was able to super suck the spark that was on the other side of the world in order to gather his completion. Okay? Many rabbis think they can do this. Okay? And good luck to them. Okay? However, okay. Others, however, must travel to different places in order to repair their life force. Do I play the violin now? Okay. Some people like travel. Okay. Yeah, this is the little violin, right? This is the little one. Sometimes a person wishes to travel to one destination, right? Yet ends up arriving somewhere else. Maybe this has happened to you before. Maybe even in a car trip, right? Definitely happened to me in my trip. I've been traveling like crazy these past 5 weeks. Nuts, I'm telling you. Southern California, Northern California, Oregon, Seattle, Houston, New York, Massachusetts, back to Houston, Louisiana, LA, okay? Now, the great thing happened was, thank God, and we're going to learn that in the next Torah, was here I had to get on a plane to get to Portland, right? Because I got an appointment the next day in Portland. I go to the Oakland airport. We all get on the plane. It's wonderful. Okay, right? And all of a sudden, sorry, we have got bad news for you. There was a Fetzer valve Johnson rod leakage, and it doesn't look like it's going to be fixed, so we're going to ask everybody to leave the plane. So we all had to get off the plane, and it doesn't look like it's going to be fast, so you're going to be messed up. It doesn't look like you're going anywhere. I got to get to Portland. What are you talking about? So I'm waiting in line, and they, of course, thank God, Oakland, it's not too far from San Francisco. So what they do is they re-ticketed me to San Francisco. They gave me an Uber to go all the way to San Francisco International Airport, to get on a plane there, to get on a later flight to get to Portland. Wonderful. But you know something? I know this Baal Shem Tov. I know God means me to go to San Francisco, to the international airport, for a reason that obviously I have to gather the holy sparks. It's okay, right? So people have to travel, okay? Sometimes you don't have to travel too far. But if you want to go to one destination and all of a sudden, sorry, you could be on a plane or wherever, and sorry, we have to make a stop here because for whatever reason, and obviously you're stuck in another city, and it happened with many rabbis and many people. They find themselves somewhere else. This is no accident, because God is so perfect. He arranges everything to the unbelievable perfection. For he must repair his life force that has fallen there. At times, it may be enough to merely eat or drink in that place. I think I would use the bathroom in San Francisco in order to perfect himself. So you say a bracha in this certain place, a she'akolni bevaro over water, brei priya eitz over fruit, whatever it is, you say a blessing in that place. You've instantly, in the words of the blessing, because of the force energy of the life of the letters, right? Of the Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, it ignites all of the sparks in the entire city, in the entire area. And then you have done your repair work to bring completion to yourself. Of course, you need a munah to do this. Now, going back here, okay, to Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu was this great man who can dwell in the tent and suck the sparks out for where he is. The interesting thing comes at the end of this week's Parsha. And what happens at the end of the Parsha, where he gets the blessing from his father. His brother is not happy. He wants to kill him. And Rivka devises a plan. I'm going to send you to your Uncle Lovin for a little while, and then we'll call. And you'll come, right? Right? We're going to send you to your Uncle Lovin. I think it's a better idea because Asa wants to kill you. Right? So then, she goes and speaks to Isaac, to Yitzchak. I think it's a good idea that we send him to Uncle Lovin. Right? Oh, I don't want to go to Uncle Lovin. No, he's okay. Right? He wasn't okay? He was a dark Sith Lord, Uncle Lovin. You understand? He was the darkest man in creation. As a matter of fact, Bilam came from Lovin, okay? Really dark dude, okay? He was lily white. He looked all white and everything nice and smiling, but he was like stab you in the back. In any case, here's Yaakov at the end of the parsha has to go out. What happened? I thought he was doing the super spark suck, right? From where he is. Why does he have to go out? This is amazing. You're going to love this. We are taught from the Talmud and tradition that the evil inclination only enters a person when they are born, because it says lepetach hatas rovetz, sin crouches at the door is the womb. And what happened is then how could it be when Rivka was going by the house of idol worship, the baby was rumbling? We know inside the womb, technically, according to the way that we've been passed down from Mount Sinai, there is no evil inclination in the womb. Not until the baby is born does an evil inclination enter the person. So there's no evil inclination. So this is a really amazing thing. Service of God is done in two ways. One is called sur meirah, desisting from evil, and one is called aseh tov, do good. Okay? In other words, you got to make sure you're not doing bad, not doing anything destructive. And on the other side, you have to make sure you're doing positive deeds, helping people positive. So you have to stay away from negativity and do positive. Those are two basic sides of a coin, or two angles or ways how we serve God. That's why you have negative commandments and you have positive commandments. So when they were in the womb, Yaakov's whole destiny was positive, do good, aseh tov, okay? Esau's original destiny was called sur meirah, desist from evil. In other words, he was also had potential to be unbelievably righteous and excel in the service of eradicating evil from the world in a holy way. That's why when she passed by a house of idol worship, Esau would get all rumbled. Not that he rumbled to go and worship the idol. He shook in the womb to go and destroy the idol. He wanted to eradicate idolatry, and that was Esau's original mission. Now, it happened when he came out into the world, and he went into what we call the wicked way. He followed the dark side of the force. He turned on his bar mitzvah to the dark side. He killed a man, raped a woman, and committed idolatry in one day. That's why he came in so hungry for the bowl of lentils. Of course, that's a whole symbolic thing of he had a destiny and he went for the bowl of lentils, right? How many times do we, right, skip our destiny and we just go for the bowl of lentils, okay? So never sell your birthright for a bowl of lentils, okay? So the idea was his destiny was meant to be positive. But of course, when he did that and scorned the birthright, so he lost his destiny. It happened more like when Jacob took the blessings. When Jacob got the blessings of Esau, he got Jacob's mission in the world. His mission in the world, Esau's mission in the world, was to eradicate evil in the world. So when Yaakov Avinu got the blessings, he took on the role of what Esau was supposed to do in holiness. And that's why he had to go out. Now he had to go and take on his uncle Lavan for 20 years, because he had to go out and gather the sparks from there, because it was a new mission. Okay? So once again, his pre-mission, his original mission of who he was, the Aseh Tov guy, the guy who does the positive, he could have sucked in all the sparks for himself where he was. However, when he took on Esau's mission, so then he had to go out, because there it required, I guess, the level of Torah learning wasn't going to do it. Okay? We have to do this next piece, okay? Because it's so important, okay? Because it's something that we need to really hold it very fast to us. It is very powerful, okay? So I say here, like I said, at the end of the parsha, it says, right? And Jacob went out from Beersheba and he went toward Haran. Okay? What is Haran? Haran is Haron Af, which is the anger. In other words, he left Beersheba, which is, Beersheba literally means the well of seven, okay? The seven wells. And he went to the place of Haran. Once again, Haran is also, the Midrash brings down, is like the anger of God. So he's going into the abyss. And there's a Midrash. The Midrash says like this is so important. The Midrash quotes Jacob as saying, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains, Esa Esainai El Harim Me'ayin Yavo Ezri. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? What are those mountains? Okay, there's different commentaries, right? Which is basically, the mountains could be the evil inclination, as we know that the tzaddikim are shown a mountain at the end of days. That was their evil inclination, and they weep because how could I have ever conquered this thing? Whatever it is, their obstacles, I lift my eyes up to the mountains, from where will my help come? So this is the Midrash. What? This is what Jacob is saying. Because don't forget, when Jacob left Esau, he was pursued by someone. Did you know that? Mm-hmm. Esau, he knew that Yaakov was leaving, right? And Yaakov left with a lot of goods. He had camels. He had the goods. He had a lot of money. He wasn't, on his just a backpack. So he sent his son. Esau sent his son Eliphaz. He said, Eliphaz, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to go and kill Yaakov on the road, right? So Eliphaz gets his men together, catches up to Yaakov, and he says, Yaakov, I got a problem, right? And Yaakov says, what's your problem? He says, I was raised on the lap of Yitzchak, who is my grandfather. And Yitzchak always told me, thou shalt not kill. We're not allowed to kill. But my father, I got to do kibbut av v'aim. I got to honor my father. He says to kill you. So do I kill you? Yitzchak says don't kill you, but my father, I have to honor my father. I have to kill you. So what do I do? So Yaakov, he's got the way out. He says, well, a poor man is considered like he's dead. So if you take all of my money, everything that I own, you go back to your father, it's as if you killed me because you took all my money. Because a poor man is considered as if he's dead. So that's what he did. So here's Yaakov moving on to the place of Haran, and he's got nothing. Okay? Zilch, zilch, arrow, nothing. Right? Not a dime for a phone call. So he says, what? Going on in the text, have I lost hope in my Creator? God forbid. I certainly have not lost hope in Him. Rather, Ezri me'im Hashem, my help comes from God, who made heaven and earth. This teaches us that when the heavenly court wants to mete out punishment to a person, this is so unbelievable, and there's more to be developed on this, and we're going to get into it. They first take away his trust in God. The first thing they take away is a person's emunah and bitachon in a Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's the first thing. God, the heavens, they have to take away that person's level of consciousness where he is trusting in God. Okay? Because then It's not a test. A test, in order to be a test, we have to take away his levels. Because if the guy's got these high levels of consciousness and he sees that God is all there is, then it's not really a test. It's not really a punishment. Okay? Because really all punishments are just affecting a balance, really. There's no such thing as a punishment, really. What it is God has to balance the accounts. So he takes a few nickels or quarters from the person, okay? But before they do that, before you get the big bill or whatever it is, right? They take away your trust. In other words, all of a sudden, your level of consciousness has gone down. And then they give you whatever it is you need to affect the balance. It's almost as if you're on your own, okay? So the idea here that the Baal Shem Tov gives us, such advice, it's so amazing. It is therefore wise to beseech God to strengthen our trust in him always. In other words, first thing, when the stuff hits the fan, in any situation, small or big, the first thing to do is open your mouth and pray, God, give me trust in you. God, give me more trust in you. God, please, I need more emunah and more trust in you that you're doing the best thing for me. Because if you still hold on to that level of trust, they can't punish you. It's amazing. It's almost like your shield. That is your protection. In other words, when Yaakov Avinu went out, right, and he's all alone, and he's got nothing, right, he maintains and he prays his level of trust in God totally, and therefore nothing bad can happen to him, okay? Because they can't touch you if you trust, okay? There's a text which I did bring down in an earlier class that brings down that Gehenna, we don't have a concept of hell. We have the concept of Gehenna. Now, purgatory, whatever you'll call it, it's really not purgatory either. It's Gehenna. And Gehenna, of course, the Baal Shem Tov holds there is no such thing as Gehenna. But the Ramchal brings down, because of Gehenna is really you just being exposed to this bright light and you can't handle the light, so it hurts, because sometimes a bright light can hurt. So the Ramchal brings down the most amazing thing about Gehenna is there's one force that is the anti-Gehenna force, and that's Kaveh El Hashem, hoping to God. Hope. Because Gehenna itself, I heard one rabbi say, is where there's no hope. In other words, that is Gehenna. When you're at a point of no hope, that is Gehenna. The only force that could get you out of Gehenna is hope, or it's called Kav, Kaveh. You remember we spoke last week about the sphere and the Kav? That is the Kav. The Kav is the hoping to God, hanging out in your mind that there is a reason for everything happening. I got to end off with this great story, okay? So we spoke about the first thing, this is the last word is, no matter what, pray for more trust, no matter what. First thing to do, right? No money, pray for more trust. You need better relationships, pray for more trust. Health, more trust. This, more trust. Whatever it is, more trust. Now, I have to tell you this great story, because it has to do with gathering the sparks. That there was the Maggid of Mezrich, he was the main student of the Baal Shem Tov. And he would always come to the Baal Shem Tov for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the high holidays. Now, of course, he would visit during the times of the year as well. So I think it was just during the summer months or something, maybe July, August. And he says, okay, I'm going, Rebbe, back home, and I'll be back I'll be back for Rosh Hashanah. And the Rebbe goes, happy trails. It's a strange word, a strange greeting. He never usually greets, he sends off his student with such a greeting. Like, happy travels, safe travels, or something like that, right? And the Maggid goes, he usually gives a different blessing, I'll see you, looking forward to Rosh Hashanah, right? Rosh Hashanah, right? Not so, right? So he's like, that's really weird. Why didn't he greet me like that? Whatever. So he goes back to his town, hangs out there, gets close to Rosh Hashanah time. And of course, for him to get to the Baal Shem Tov, he needed to take a boat. So he gets on the boat, of course, to travel to Medjibuj, where the Baal Shem Tov lived, And he's on the boat. Of course, there's a big storm at sea, and a huge storm. They're knocked off course, and the boat breaks or something like that, or whatever. I think the boat broke, and it has to disembark in an island, a remote island somewhere. That's how far off they were. So here it is, Erev Rosh Hashanah. In the afternoon, the boat finally docks in this strange island. Who knows where? So the Maggid says, okay, I got Rosh Hashanah to do. So he goes, he finds a room real quickly, he pays the guy for the room, puts his muktzah down, goes to the mikveh, in the ocean, comes out of the mikveh, puts his talis on, it's Rosh Hashanah, light, and he's davening. And he's davening Rosh Hashanah with unbelievable fervor. The windows are open, passers-by go in, and they seeing this strange guy with this cloak or on him, this white cloak, and he's davening and he's praying. They don't know what he's doing, what is he involved in, but they're very inspired by it. Actually, it starts to be an attraction, right? Go look at this man. Did you hear this man? There's a weirdo over there, right? So people are looking. Finally, word gets to the king. The king hears about this unbelievably inspired visitor, and he calls for him. So he sends someone down there who knocks on the door where the Maggid is staying. He says, the king wants to see you. So he says, okay, I'll be there shortly. He has to finish davening, and he goes and he finishes davening, and then he goes in front of the king, and the king, says, hi, who are you? What kind of people are you? He says, I'm a Jewish person. This is what we do. And they got into a long, lengthy conversation about, the oneness of God and the Torah and providence and all kinds of unbelievable rules and all law and the cosmic forces. And the king was so impressed with the Maggid. He says, I like you. I want you to go in your hometown and bring me 10,000 more of you here into my island. You make island better, right? So the Maggid goes, well, it's not so easy. We're kind of scattered all over the place, and maybe I can't just say, okay, guys, we're just gonna move, 10,000, bring, right? And the guy, it's not gonna happen. Finally, the king realizes it's not gonna happen, okay? And he sends the Maggid, okay, after Rosh Hashanah, the boat's fixed, he gets on the boat, he finally makes it to the Baal Shem Tov. As soon as he enters into the Baal Shem Tov's room, right, and so he always pulls it, the Baal Shem Tov says, thank God you went to that island. If you didn't go to that island and suck up all the sparks in that island with your tefillot, 10,000 of us Jews would have to go there to that remote place, and we'd be stuck there for God knows how long, okay? So that was boom. In other words, there was a purpose that the Maggid had to go to that island to suck up the holy spark so the Jews wouldn't have to go there and settle. Okay? So sometimes there are these root souls that suck up the sparks, or whatever it is. Wherever you have to go, you're on a special mission. And not only just to gather up the sparks in general, but it's also for you, for your own perfection. Okay, with that, I'll end off. Okay, we'll stop here. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.